Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now, first of all, for those of you following along, last Saturday I did not have a new video. The first time in 4 years I have not had a regularly scheduled video on Saturday morning for you. For that, I apologize. The reason why? Well, life got in the way of having fun. Between the pickup, not working, having to deal with that, 95, 100 degree temperatures outside, and some family events planned, I just couldn't get down here to put out a video of any sort of quality. And I'd rather have quality over quantity. So with that being said, we're back. Of course, the 38 is behind me, and I have a deadline of the beginning of November to get this back to the owner. So what does that mean for us? That means a lot of work in a very short period of time, about 6 to 7 weeks. Can we do it? Maybe. Will I lose a lot of sleep? Probably. So where we're at, left this off. We got the body, most of it in primer, aside from the doors. I did go ahead and lay down some guide coat so I can start block sanding that, and I actually have. Let's take a little walk around quick here. Well, look at our shop supervisor today. Tank. Yes. Big, fluffy, friendly kitty. Say hi. Yes. Anyways. Yes. Challenger parts. Back to the Plymouth. I've got guide coat on, and I've started on the most dimly lit back corner because I've got other stuff going on. But you can see, I'm starting, just got in this area, working on, and already I've got a little divot right here. You can see where the guide coat does not sand off, so that means that's a low spot. I'm gonna hit that. It's just, you can barely feel it with your finger, so that may get a little skim of the Dolphin glaze and move on. The rest of the car, of course, still needs to be blocked. Doors, rust replacement. I'm just gonna skip that stuff on camera, I think. I am working on the battery box. The owner was going to replace it entirely, and he was not happy with the original quality from some of the other parts we've ordered. And basically what I did is, it's upside down, but the old one stopped right here and this was all open, and he wanted it more boxed in. So I welded in some metal around it, hit it with some undercoating, truck bed coating, and we'll put that back in the car so it can move again. Currently it's sat there since we painted it, and I really don't want to push it. Also, I am working on a final spray out to send him. I've got 2 coats of our base on here. I'm going to mix up a little bit of clear, send that off in the mail, and hopefully he is okay with that color. If not, we'll fiddle around until he is happy. I've sent him some, pictures from text message, but I'd like to have him see an actual physical thing in his hand he can look at in the light and give me the approval before I go ahead and buy all the paint. Behind you, I've got the trunk and the 2 rear fenders. Those also need to be blocked out and metal worked. A little bit of repair patchwork on those yet, but by and large, probably 80% done with the metal work. So we've got one more other front fender. The other front fender is over there, nearly done. I have the running boards to prime, and then the hood pieces, the hood skirts on the side, and then the grill that's under wraps right now. So just a lot of priming to do, a little bit, like I said, patchwork behind me. There's, well, tip you down. If we look in, right over there, that area there is going to get cut out and replaced. While I could have left those front fenders on, painted it as is and sent it back, we all know it's going to happen in a year or 2, right? It's going to be back here with an unhappy customer because why? The paint is flaking off from bad rust and lack of proper body work. So that's where we're at. I'm going to just turn this thing off for a while and just get to cranking out some work because really, I've done enough patching on here that you've seen. I've done enough basic priming. I'll turn you back on when we've got more of the blocking done so you can see what we've got left to do in terms of metal work on the car, and hopefully make this an interesting, more timely video than the one that was not here last week. So I'm just going to get to it, and we'll see you right after this. Alrighty, well, we are working on our trunk now, working on the block sanding. We have gone over our guide coat, and most of the areas where I knew were going to be problems, we're still seeing the actual guide coat in here versus the lighter color, which means low spots. You'll still see the guide coat, which means we have not gone all the way down, or there is some other issue with the metal work, like a divot or something. Any of these higher spots, there's a little bit of a ridge, and as you see kind of on the bottom here, maybe you can't see as well as I can, but there's a little bit of a ridge on both sides here. I can feel that. That's okay. Up here in the back, there was some damage. We pulled most of it out, and there's a few high spots I need to tap down, a couple of low spots, just little tiny spots I can hit with the filler or the skim coat. This doesn't really require any real fill. None here. Actually, what we are going to use is that U-Pole Dolphin Glaze, just a light, smooth skim coat on some of these low spots. Here, this is where our light assembly goes, so I'm not worried about this area. And also in here, our license plate bracket fits here. So this area, there's just a little bit of a divot down here. You can barely feel it with your finger, and if I tried to do it, pull it out or hammer from the back, I can't because the inner skin and structure of the deck lid is back there. So it is what it is. There's a few little spots. Most of them I'm finding are contours in the panel that should be there. So I'm not worried about any of this. So I'm going to go ahead and throw on some of that Dolphin Glaze, let this sit overnight for me right now, come back. We will hit it again. We're just hitting it with 120 with our soft sanders. Back there, I have the linear blocking tools, but for this, it's too much angle and compound curves, and I just have not had good luck with the linear blocking tools on these smaller areas. Big areas like roofs and hoods and sides, great. But for here, the soft foam soft sanders work excellent. So I'm gonna run up to the house, the garage, and grab my Dolphin Glaze, and we'll get a little bit of skim coat on and let that sit and come back tomorrow. Alrighty, well, we've got some of our Dolphin Glaze mixed up here. I'm just gonna kind of make some little happy little slatherings of stuff and let it set. Now luckily our temperature is far more palatable down here this week. No longer are we in the 90s and 100 degrees in the building. It's currently 71 degrees. I'm okay with that. That also means that our stuff doesn't kick in a horribly short amount of time. Do this in hot weather and your filler or your skim hardens up real quick. And then you've got lots of unused, wasted product. So we'll see what we can do here. Should have brought a bigger spreader. Chunk in there from something. Anyways, fill this little spot in. Move on to somewhere else. If you work it too long, you'll end up getting air pockets in it. So we'll just quit while we're not ahead anymore. Move on to more of our low spots. And the nice thing about this filler, it's super lightweight, it's super thin, it applies really easily, so we can come back, sand it down with our blocks, and move on with life. It's not like we're dealing with cake batter. Now, if you remember in the last video, I painted the underside of here too, or primed the underside, and I'm not nearly as concerned about doing any skim coat underneath. We're just going to hit it with some sandpaper, smooth it off. So when we go back to seal it, we have a good smooth surface to start with. Now some folks will go ahead and skim the entire vehicle, sand it all down. I'm not really in favor of that. I guess to me, if you start doing that, your car turns into a Bondo queen. Even if you sand 95% of it off. Just my preference. You look at other shops, especially professional shops, again, you'll get the same opinion, whether you just do your spot areas or you do the whole panel and knock it down. So you can do whichever you like. This is what I'm doing. And feel free to disagree with me in the comments. Now we're just starting to get this stuff thickening up, so we're about done. I've got just about a grape-sized chunk left on here. And I'm going to work just these little areas real quick. See if I can get one last little bit of stuff in there before it hardens up on me. A little divot right here. And there we go. Everything's used up. And now I'm going to let this sit overnight because it's 20 after 9 for me on a Monday night. And I'll come back to it tomorrow.
The next day.
Alrighty, we've been working on our trunk and our two fenders behind me here. Going well, blocking for the most part. There are definitely some areas I see, well, those weren't really good to begin with. So got to work on those. The biggest problem I'm running into now is I went up to O'Reilly's to grab our primer, and they're still out. Digging a little more, it sounds like there was a national issue with some of the chemicals and the solvents, and pretty much you spray it on your base or your clear, and everything underneath would just melt off. That's a story I got. Don't know if that's the case or not, but that being said, we are not getting any primer for a while. So I do have a little bit left in my gallon jar that I'm going to use to prime over the trunk lid here that is pretty well blocked out and skimmed just to cover up that bare metal. But I'm going to kind of hold off on the rest of the pieces that need to be blocked out, especially the cab itself, until we have a line on primer. Maybe I need to go ahead and try a different brand, switch over to, epoxy versus urethane, whatever the case may be. But we got to move forward in the car anyways. So while I'm giving this a little more time to settle and see if we can't get a regular primer in here before I go out and buy all new materials, I'm going to grab the framework and bracketry for the front and rear bumpers and the front fenders and get those cleaned up and painted in our nice Eastwood chassis black. So I've got some of that laying around still. And that's something I can at least move forward with. So I'm going to go try and dig those parts out over here on our pallet racking. I think I know where they are. But there's oddly a lot of stuff over there from all of my projects. So let me go try and find that stuff and we'll keep moving forward. Alrighty, well I've got ahead, dug all the parts out. There's 1, 2, 3, half dozen or so parts for these. This is one of the fender, front fender supports. We've got our bumper, front, bumper, rear, and pretty much I'm going to disassemble these. There's a couple of more bolts on here. Hopefully I don't snap off. And then I'm just going to strip them down, either sandblast if I have to, but wire wheel. They're not too bad rust-wise. There's just decades of gunk on them and crud and buildup and looks like either mud or undercoating from whatever. So I'm going to get these cleaned up, and then we'll go ahead and get them primed up and painted with our, like I said, Eastwood chassis black. Put these back on the shelf, and hopefully we can get back to working on our standing for our panels. Alrighty gang, we have our bumper brackets broken down behind me. They've been hit with the wire wheel, cleaned up with spray away cleaner, get some of the wax and grease and other goodies from my hands and the environment off. You are staying over there, away from the paint. I've got our Eastwood chassis black primer ready to go. And we're gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna shoot the primer tonight, let it dry. And depending if we got a lot of trash in it, we'll either scuff it down and reshoot it, and then try and put down some plastic under here, because it really doesn't work to wet down a dirt floor. See how we go. So we're just gonna go ahead and get that primer on, let it sit, and go from there. So let me go grab my paint. All right, well, we've got those parts primed. Again, this is overkill. The parts weren't rusty. They weren't disgusting. Basically just cleaning these things up, putting another coat of A, primer because we can, and B, a good coat of that chassis black, just to help make sure this is gonna last for another 80 years, 90 years, however old this car is, old. Why? Because we're already going this far to take everything else apart as far as we have, so why not take the extra little time, make sure these are also cleaned up and prepped, and looking nice when everything goes back together. Have that nice chassis black set off on the chrome, and the kind of grayish metallic color that I think this thing is gonna be. Anyways, I had to get my gun cleaned up, let the stuff sit overnight, and we'll see how it looks tomorrow.
The next morning.
Alrighty gang, well, it is a new day. Our parts have set overnight, let that primer cure, and I've already gone ahead and mixed up about 8 ounces of our Eastwood chassis black that I'm gonna go ahead and spray down. One if not 2 coats, and see if we can get a good liberal covering on here. Again, these will not be perfectly smooth mirror finish parts. They are old. They are not going to be refinished to mirror-like finish. Again, these brackets hide underneath the front fender, so you're never gonna see them. These hide behind the bumper, and all you're really going to see is about 3 inches, if even that, and the same for the front bumper. We're really not looking for a showpiece here. We're looking for something that's protected for the next 80 years, and that's what that Eastwood chassis block is gonna do for us, just like this. So let me go ahead and get masked up, grab my gun, and let's shoot. Well, there we go. Let's take a little closer look at the paint. Again, stuff is still drying here, but you can see all of my shadows. We've got plenty of nice new shiny black paint on here. It's not a high gloss. Like I said, it's the Eastwood chassis black. And this should hold up plenty well. Even this, you could see, when I cleaned it up, I was able to knock off a lot of the dirt, and you could see some of the markings in the metal, so that's nice to bring back out again. This is going to turn out real nice again. You might see this part here if you look between the bumper and the trunk. Otherwise, it's all going to be covered. This front area here all gets tucked up in the bumper, and you'll never see it. But at least we're trying to do the best job that we can with what we've got to work with and the time we've got to work with, which brings me to another topic of concern, our primer. We still can't get a hold of the 42110 2K primer, DTM primer, So I'm going to change directions and go pick up some of the epoxy DTM primer and hope that will get us through the rest of the car. Like I say, I've still got a little bit of primer left. The DTM primer, I've got a can of just plain old sealer. I've got a can of plain old primer once we already have the bare metal covered, but I need something with that direct to metal adhesion. And I can't get that in the regular urethane primer now, so we're gonna go ahead and try the epoxy route and finish up our panels here. Like I said, we've got primer on most everything, but once we get everything blocked out, we will have another coat of primer to get down. And if this will allow us to get down 2 coats of primer, we can start shooting base. So I am headed off there now to pick that primer up. And then I'm gonna come back here and just spend the next, probably a lot of days and evenings blocking out the rest of the car. So if you don't see me for a few weeks, I'm gonna say right now that's why. I mean, sure, we've got a wedding to go to and some other family camping weekends planned, but this is gonna take a lot of time to get everything blocked out, skimmed, reshot, blocked, repeat the process until this is a nice, smooth finish with no low spots or imperfections, and get it done to the best of our ability. So I'm gonna wrap this up now, and again, say thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We have hit the peak and headed downhill to get this thing reassembled. Like I said, we've got just a few more weeks, about 6 weeks to get it done and back to the owner so he can get it to his date with the upholstery shop. I would want to hopefully get it done so the car doesn't have to come back here after that. So for me, it's just making the time to get it done. It's feasible. The parts list over there isn't a lot to fix. Again, there's still a couple of little metal patches to put in. That's an afternoon or two. And then it's sanding and blocking and sanding and blocking and yeah. So that's why you may not see me for a while. I don't think you'll want to see 3 weekends in a row of just me sanding on a car. So we'll get this one done and out the door and move back to our Challenger or the 52, whichever we've got parts for. And you know which one that is. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you real soon in the next video, whenever that is. Take care. Bye-bye.